Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Bohlale Paile for those of you that are new. I'm a young talent specialist and I use this platform to give you guys key information as to how you can get yourself corporate ready. As most of you already know, I've gone through a whole series of videos talking you through how to best prepare your CV. And now what we're going to do is that I'm going to use the next couple of weeks to really delve into how to get yourself prepared from an interview perspective, right? So we're going to do it from end to end. We're going to go through all the way from when you've received a call for an interview, how do you best prepare for it, all the different things in between that you need to be aware of, and also some of the key questions that you guys have been sending through on my Instagram page that have really been helpful in making sure that I answer some of those questions in the content that I've prepared just for you guys. So as a first video introduction to this, I thought to maybe just go through some of the high level things that are important for you to be thinking about as you get called for an interview. And like I say, I'm going to do a deep dive into some of these videos as the month progresses. So when you get called for that interview, there are 6 key things that I think are important for you to be mindful of and for you to go through systematically in your head as you prepare for the interview. First thing that you need to do is that you need to diarize the date, the time, and the venue, and also think about what am I going to wear, right? So it's important first off to make sure that you're diarizing the right date because you don't want to get that confused. Diarizing the time as well, because you always need to think about how far is this place. If it is an interview that's in person, you need to think about how far is this place that I'm going to and what is the drive time needed between my home and getting there so that you can ensure that you're getting there on time. And if it's a virtual interview, you need to make sure that you're in a place that's going to give you the opportunity to really have some quietness, have the right amount of Wi-Fi, and also make sure that you're preparing yourself from that perspective as well. In terms of what you need to wear, make sure that you've thought through what it is that you need to wear, both for virtual and for in-person. It's absolutely important that you know exactly how you want to present yourself because first impressions always count. The thing that's important to do is that you research the company, right? So as soon as you know that you're going for an interview, this is one of the critical pieces that you need to do. You need to make sure that you are going onto their website, you're going onto LinkedIn to read more about them. You're trying to understand how big is the company, which locations are they based in, who's the executive team at this company, what is their culture, what is their ethos, what are the values that they uphold. These are just some of the things that you need to be looking for and reading about in preparation for the interview because it's absolutely important. There are key questions that may come your way and you need to be prepared for this because it also just helps you solidify in your mind why you want to apply for this particular company, and also it gives you an opportunity to make sure that you are as ready as possible for any question they may throw at you that relates to the company in specific. So make sure that you're researching the company, make sure that you're researching what some of the people are saying about the company as well. If you have any relatives that may be working for the company, get a sense from them, what's their experience of the company, because the more prepared you are, the better. So number 3 will be studying the job spec, right? It's important for you to go through the job spec in detail so that you understand what the title is, what are some of the roles and responsibilities required of me, and also what are some of the key attributes that they're looking for. It's important for you to understand what's in that job spec so that as you prepare for the interview, you are able to adequately answer some of the questions that are required of you because you understand what the role entails. The next thing that's important is that as you are studying the job spec, understand where you fit in relation to the job spec, right? So as you go through the roles and responsibilities, ask yourself, what are some of the things that are on the job spec that I already know and that I've already done, that I have experience in, right? And then ask yourself, what are some of the things on the job spec that I don't know and that I don't have experience in, right? It's important for you to understand that piece because in any role that you go into, it's important that there are key things, at least 60-70% of the role that you already have some level of exposure to, but there is also another 30% that are growth areas for you. Why it's important to always have growth areas is because you don't want to go into a role that you can do inside out, right? Otherwise, there's not much that you're going to learn from a technical perspective and from an exposure perspective. So always make sure you understand what are some of the things I'm good at within what they're asking for and some of the things that I don't have exposure to. Now, mostly for grads, there's a lot of areas that you're not going to have exposure to, and that is why certain grad programs are built in a way that's going to help you get that exposure. But what we look for from a graduate perspective is someone that's passionate about their role, and how can they demonstrate that? Is someone that's done well enough in their academics to show a level of understanding and commitment to what it is that they are studying. And that's why I keep talking about doing extracurricular activities, because some of the skills that are going to be required of you are skills that you can gain at university. You don't have to have formal experience to do it, right? So make sure that as you go through the job spec, you are comparing what are some of the things that I'm good at, what are some of the things I need to grow at, and understand that for yourself. The importance of doing that is that when they get to questions that really ask you about, why should we hire you? What are you going to be bringing to the table? What do you think are some of your key strengths and what are some of your key weaknesses, right? When they ask those questions, you've already thought through it, right? The better you understand the job spec and your positioning in relation to it, the better you can articulate some of the answers for questions that are coming up in the interview. Next thing that's important, practice, practice, practice. It's absolutely important for you to be practicing some of those key questions. There are certain key questions that are going to come up about, tell me about yourself, what do you know about the company, what are some of your key strengths, what are some of your key weaknesses. They're also going to ask you competency-based questions, right, which I'll go through in a particular video just to give you a sense of what are they actually looking for, how do I need to answer these questions. So practice, right, that's the key point that I want to get across right now. Don't just understand the company and the job spec and where you fit in relation to the job spec. Practice the answer for the key questions. The more practiced you are, the better you'll be able to deliver it. Now, from my experience, I've never gone in and said it verbatim, right? I've never kind of gone into an interview, and because I've practiced it, I said exactly the way that it is. But what it helps me to do is realign myself. So if I do get to a point where I feel like I'm giving too much context or too much information, I'm able to pull myself back and go through it in my head and say, okay, what was the next point that I wanted to speak about? So I'm able to close off something and jump straight into the next point that I wanted to say. So if you don't know what those points are that you want to say, even as you pull yourself back, you don't know where to pick up from and you don't know where to start. So it's absolutely important that you practice some of those key questions. Not every key question is going to be asked, but it's important for you to know how you want to address it so that when it is asked, you're able to kind of go through that with confidence. And lastly, I think it's always important to prepare 1 or 2 questions that you can ask of the panel at the end of your interview. A lot of times at the end of an interview, they ask you, do you have any questions? Is there anything you want to know more about? And it's important for you to have 1 or 2 questions that you want to ask. And even though maybe some of your questions have been answered as you've kind of gone through the interview, there are certain questions that maybe don't have to do with the interview at all that you could prepare to ask the panel. And things like, what do you guys love about working here, right? And that's going to help you get a better sense from an employee's perspective. What are some of the key things about this company that they absolutely love, right? And what are some of the key things that maybe are challenging for them in their current roles? That's one question you can ask. You can always ask, please tell me more about the process going forward and when I can expect to get feedback, right? So there are some generic questions that you guys can ask that will always give you a better sense of the culture and the personal kind of experiences at that particular company. So guys, that wraps up some of the key points that I think are important when you are called for an interview. Like I say, I'm going to use the month of March to really kind of do a deep dive into some of those key elements that are important for you to know as you prepare for an interview. Thank you so much for those of you that engage with me on my Instagram page, because I do regularly ask questions on Instagram around what is it that you want to hear more of? What are some of the key burning issues for you that you want to get more information about? And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to weave in some of those questions into the key topics that I speak about, so that at any point in time, I am answering the questions and I'm making these videos a lot more valuable to you guys, so that you walk away feeling a lot more confident about your ability and knowing exactly where to start. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel and sharing it with some of your friends that are also in the same boat, that are also studying or also, preparing for interviews. I think the more that you guys know, the more confident you are as you go for that interview. And when you're confident, I think you just feel a lot better as you're answering questions. And even if you feel like you messed up one or two questions, that you know at the end of the day that you've really kind of given your best. And that's all that's really required of you at the end of the day. Thank you so much. Really looking forward to engaging with you guys on the videos that are still to come and making sure that I'm helping you get corporate ready.